Welcome to Major Wager. I'm Christopher Smith, here to talk a little Alabama basketball with you this morning. Alabama, of course, hired Nate Oats from Buffalo about a week ago today. And boy, Nate Oats has gotten busy already. I think, first of all, anytime you're talking about an Alabama basketball coach, you have to wonder, is he going to create enough excitement to fit in with the football team? Avery Johnson made one NCAA tournament in 4 years, and that was with lottery pick Colin Sexton last year, and collapsed after going 15-8 to start this season. The one thing you could always count on with Avery Johnson was he had a personality, and he got people to pay attention to Alabama basketball to a degree, and he had a name. And Nate Oats did a great job starting out at his first press conference being introduced as the University of Alabama's head coach. Alabama, of course, had 4 players in the transfer portal when Nate Oats arrived. Those include John Petty, Kyra Lewis, Daniel Giddens, and Dazon Ingram. And asked about those players, one of the first things that Nate Oats said as Alabama's head coach was, well, some of the people in the transfer portal probably should be in the transfer portal. In other words, either you're not good enough, or if you don't want to be with us, good riddance. We're going to win without you. And I think that's the kind of attitude that Alabama fans are going to love in this new head coach. He did call Pac-12 defenses soft a few years back, a guy who's just not afraid to speak his mind, not afraid to tell the truth. On top of that, at Buffalo, where he actually won 2 NCAA tournament games in the last 2 years, I think Alabama has one of those in the last 13 years. Anyway, Buffalo plays a very exciting brand of basketball, up-tempo, shoots a lot of threes, in-your-face defense. I think Alabama fans are going to really love the style of play this team plays with. I think it'll also be a really good fit for the Tide. If you look at how Alabama's roster is usually comprised, they have a lot of athletes. Now, they may not be as skilled as what Nate Oats really needs in terms of passing and shooting the ball, and that will have to improve. But, space out the floor, run up and down, take advantage of Alabama's athleticism. A player like a Herb Jones is really good in transition in the open court. Now, he's not going to knock down any threes for you, but when you have guys like Alabama had this year in Dante Hall and Daniel Giddens clogging up the lane and playing at a slightly more methodical pace, it was a little bit tougher to get out on the break and run and dunk and hit open threes. Now, John Petty is another guy, and Alex Reese, Alabama's 2 best shooters that are currently on the roster right now. I think they should be very excited about the hire of Nate Oats. But Nate Oats' 2 keys right now are, number one, convince point guard Kyra Lewis, who was an SEC All-Freshman player in this last season, to stay. Lewis is one of the guys who has entered the transfer portal. He's gotten a lot of interest. Even Duke allegedly has been talking to him with Trey Jones leaving. Now, if Lewis were to transfer, he'd have to sit out a year. He's only a sophomore upcoming this season. He's not a grad transfer. So I think his number one job right now is to convince Kyra Lewis, his point guard, to stay and play basketball in Tuscaloosa. Beyond that, Trendon Watford, a star from Mountain Brook High School in the Birmingham area, is one of the top unsigned recruits in the country. If Nate Oats were to sign him, now he's competing with a bunch of other schools, including Duke, for his services. But if Nate Oats were to sign Watford, that would be a huge statement before he even coaches his first game as an Alabama basketball head coach. Now, Oats has said all the right things. His style fits Alabama, and early on, he's recruited well. I think the biggest problem with Avery Johnson's era, other than he wasn't a college coach, is he kind of never had his son played on the team, but he never developed a relationship with the players to the point where you could just tell they would go out and play hard for him every night, or that they would get in the gym on their own and work on their game. I think player development and Nate Oats' relationships with players going forward will be a huge deal for Alabama. As somebody who grew up with courtside seats at Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa and watched a lot of Alabama basketball over the last several decades, I think Nate Oats has a chance to be special. Now, the question in the SEC in basketball right now is, what should expectations be, and what is and what is not winning enough at Alabama? So I think at Alabama, you should be able to, if you're running a good program, make the NCAA tournament, at least every other year, if not more than that. We saw Mark Godfrey do that. We saw Wimp Sanderson do that. We saw, even David Hobbs had a run there for a while where he was able to accomplish that at Alabama. It hasn't been done the last two coaches. Avery Johnson didn't do it. Anthony Grant didn't do it. But I think the way that SEC schools are paying their head basketball coaches right now, it's pretty common now to see $3 million plus per year. And the fact that the SEC's gotten in, half its teams or more to the NCAA tournament the last two seasons, I think expectations are going to be as high as they've been in a long time for Alabama basketball, and Nate Oats will have to live up to that. I think if he fails to retain Kyra Lewis and doesn't sign Watford the first year, it will probably be pretty tough to actually make the NCAA tournament. So I do think that if he gets to the Sweet 16 in the first 3 years, I think he'll be accomplishing everything that a Tide fan could hope for. And maybe within 5 years, if he could make a run at this Sweet 16 or Elite 8 again, and Alabama's only been to one Elite 8 ever, if he were to at least put them in a position to where they had a chance to compete for that in a game, Alabama fans would have to be very, very happy. Now, if he makes one tournament in 3 or 4 years, we could be in the same spot that Alabama was in before, where they're paying out a pretty substantial buyout. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Greg Byrne, Alabama's AD, made a great hire. He didn't stick to any boxes, didn't say I have to get a coach with Power 5 experience or that knows the SEC, anything like that. And the Nate Oats era will begin later this fall for Alabama. And until then, it'll be interesting to watch how he finishes out in recruiting. For Christopher Smith, this has been Major Wager talking to you about Alabama's basketball hire, and we'll talk to you again soon.